Hey guys, Chad here with Midlife Classic Cars. We have a great one for you. Jim Ciardella flew all the way in from California. He is the author of The Dealer, How One California Dealership Fueled the Rise of Ferrari Cars in America. We have a great interview. We just finished up. Just a great time talking with Jim, learning all the stories about the dealership in Los Gatos?
Los Gatos,
Los
California.
Gatos, California. Yeah.
Yes.
And he actually got to visit when he was a kid. Or not a kid, I guess when you're a little bit older before the place shut down, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So great stories we're going to talk about in the book here, and let's get started. All right, Jim Ciardella, appreciate you flying in from California to do this interview all the way out to North Carolina, Greensboro. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you, Chad. I'm so excited to be here too.
Yeah, I'm really excited for your book. I read a few chapters out, read your preface last night, and I'm really excited for your book. I think it's a story that a lot of people are going to want to hear. And like we were discussing pre-interview, it's a story that to me, you don't have to be a car guy to love. Like this is not just a car guy's book. It has a car story, but we were talking, it's a business story. It's how to kind of succeed and make mistakes in life and type story.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what made you write the book? Like how did this all come about?
Well, I moved to Los Gatos maybe 15 years ago, and I met Brian Burnett. We were I was at a dinner with a friend of mine. He introduced me to Brian and said, shook hands with him. And then my friend said, Brian used to own the Ferrari dealership. And I went, oh my God, Ferrari dealership. I said, I visited that when I was younger, and it was a dream of mine. I always wanted to have a car, Ferrari. And he said, next words out of his mouth were, you still want one? So, he's still in sales mode, even though Ferrari of Los Gatos was many years ago. And I said, sure. And so he said, I know about one. It's a 82 308 GTSI. It's one owner. It's got 12,000 miles on it. It's in the shop right now, but it's available. And I just blurted out, I'll take it. And so he said, no. Let me explain to you. You never buy a car unless you or someone you trust has seen it. So he said, we'll go tomorrow and take a look at it. And if you want it, we'll get it then. So yeah, that's how I met Brian, and I ended up buying the car. Still have it today. Hopefully, I will never get rid of it. It's my Magnum PI lookalike, and something I had dreamed about many years ago.
And you say this is your car on the cover. That's your car.
Yes.
And so you had actually visited his dealership before.
I had. Probably in the 1990s.
Really?
Yeah.
Because they closed down what year?
So Brian left the dealership in like 95 or 96 time frame. He was there for about 20 years.
But you didn't meet him while he was...
I don't remember meeting him.
Okay.
After I got to know him and he started telling me so many cool stories about what happened at the dealership and all the things that he went through building the business and being so successful, and then having all the issues, like say the bumps in the road. He'd say, somebody ought to write a book about this. And I just listened to him for a couple years, actually, because we lived close to each other and we got together a lot, had dinners during the week and talked. And one night I just said to him, you know what? I'll write the book. And he looked at me kind of puzzled. He said, well, how can you write the book? You're an accountant. Because that's been my profession, my day job, so to speak. And so I said, you know what? I'll figure it out. I did a lot of writing in my career, and I'll figure it out. So anyhow, that's progressed from that. I ended up going back to school.
That had to been fun.
It was incredible. It was different. I realized actually when I went to the library to do some research, and actually I like to do my writing in the library because it was nice and quiet. But I went in and went to get my library card. I went to Stanford University, actually, and I told the librarian, I said, I think it's been about 40 years since I've been in a college library. And he never even looked up. He just said, welcome back. And it made me laugh, I thought, wow, nothing's changed, right? But I realized then that, I could be father or even grandfather to some of those students that were in there. And I did get some funny glances once in a while, but it was something that had to do, and it was a great part of the journey, getting me to here.
Yeah. Did you ever drive your Ferrari to school to let the kids see it? No.
No, I didn't. And I have to say too, though, that my professor and the other students really
Mhm.
motivated me to
That's
do
awesome.
this,
That's
and,
awesome.
and that's what you need. When you're struggling and wondering, can I really do this?
Yeah, yeah.
You need people
Get it from
around
every
you.
direction, positive energy from every direction. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
that's great. So when you guys met, I mean, how much time happened from when you shook his hand till you got the car?
Oh, I would say a matter of 2 or 3 days.
2 or 3 days. So you became friends with this guy really quick. You started getting stories out of him. Were you recording or writing down the stories that you liked
Well,
beforehand, or?
I was just listening and
Mhm.
and really mesmerized by a lot of them. But when I decided to write the book, and we said okay, and then I started sitting with him, and we'd spend an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, 2 hours, and he'd just go through and pick different pieces of the story and tell them
Yeah.
to me. And so, yes, I recorded them. I recorded a lot of other interviews with employees, his ex-partner, people that were associated with the business. So,
Yeah, and it's not just his. The book is about that, but it's just not about him. It's about
oh,
other
no,
people's stories are in there that
right.
filled in for it, right?
Absolutely. There's, like I said, his ex-partner, I interviewed him, and there's stories from him in there. There's stories from other employees that worked for Brian. There's
Mm.
stories from people that knew Brian. I mean, over the course of those 20 years, he made a lot of money. He made a lot of friends. He made a lot of enemies. And
Miami's.
at the end, you'll see in the book, he pretty much lost it in the blink of an eye. And it wasn't just Brian, it was other dealers as
Hmm.
well. And in fact, I interviewed some of those other dealers.
Really,
Yeah.
that's right. In the book, it talks about there was a big shift when Enzo passed.
Yes.
Did he know Enzo personally? It sounded like from a glance through that I did. I mean, really it changed the whole American dealership when he passed. So what
Absolutely.
happened with that?
So Brian did get to meet Enzo a couple times, and this came about from when the dealership started doing so well, and it kind of uh, it got the other dealers doing well as also throughout North America. Um, Enzo brought the dealers to Italy. He
Hmm.
wanted to, say thank you basically and share. Wanted them to see the factory and see other things, and so he actually, and it's in the book. There is a chapter called Maranello, and it's all about when the dealers all came over, 40 or 50 dealers, and their wives or girlfriends, and so about 100 people. And Enzo took care of everything. I mean, he put them in the nicest
Wow.
places, and they got to see things that most of us would never see. They're out on the
Mhm.
Formula One test tracks.
Wow.
They got to go on rides with the test drivers driving. It's
That's
a very cool story in
yeah,
the book about that.
just that alone, knowing he got to meet Enzo. I mean, that's a lot of people's dream right there. They go in his office and actually have had a conversation with
Enzo actually,
him.
he came out, and they were all in a room, and he sat there at a table and brought every dealer up one at a time and shook hands with them,
Really?
and gave him a copy of his book that he had written about when he was a race car driver
Oh
early in
wow.
his career. Autopiloti, it's called.
Oh, I do know that book.
Yeah,
Yeah, that book's been. I don't know if it's around anymore, but I do know the book you're
yeah,
talking about. Yeah,
yeah.
and I imagine he was the biggest automotive dealer there
He
for
was.
America. He was the
He
biggest. He was the
was.
biggest in the world for a time, wasn't he?
It's hard to measure. So you can't really, you don't know how the
Okay.
facts, but definitely he was number one in North America, and it's hard to believe that anybody else was selling that many anywhere in the world at that
Exactly.
time. I mean, you realize this when uh, fe- several years before they opened the dealership, Ferrari was selling less than 100 cars in America, and 4 years after the dealership opened, they were selling 1,000 cars in America. So it was a 10x growth there
Yeah.
in the 1970s, and then of course in the 80s it just took off.
Because I think one of the original Ferraris that came, they're mainly from people from military, people that came from Europe to imported them in because there were no dealerships at one point for Ferrari in America, correct?
Well, there was a couple of, I guess I would call them distributors.
Distributors.
There was Luigi Canetti was on
Mhm.
the East Coast, and then Bill Hara uh, from Hara's Casinos was on the West Coast.
Mhm.
They were friends of Enzo's, and he had set them up. So they were bringing a few cars in.
Figures in. And you mentioned everything changed once Enzo passed away, and it sounds like the way they treated the dealers and their mentality changed to where you see today a lot of people say they don't buy Ferraris because of how they're treated at the dealership and the dealer experience. Jay Leno's one that I've seen a couple interviews,
Yep.
him talk about why he doesn't buy Ferraris. Is that a direct correlation of when they ended the dealership with Brian to now and how people are treated? Do you think that's the downfall right there of it, or?
Well, that's part of it. When Enzo died, Ferrari was really in disarray for 3 or 4
Mhm.
years. They had a tough time. If you look at even their racing results in Formula
Yeah.
One racing, they won like 8 Formula One races before Enzo died, and I think it was 12 years that elapsed
Yeah.
before they won another one after he died. So the focus of the business, I think, changed. And then I think as we say in the book, when the new regime came in a few years later, they just decided that they were going to do things differently. They wanted to get back to the old
Mhm.
values that Enzo had. But for North America, that's where the big change was. There was a couple people that came over and decided that they wanted to change the way the structure was in North America. And so most of the dealerships, if not all of them, eventually became company-owned stores.
Oh wow.
So there's a part of the book that talks about the ups and downs of that and what all the dealers really went through, not just Brian.
So it sounds like it was pretty brutal for American Ferrari dealers.
It was, especially for Brian,
Hmm.
because he decided that he was going to fight back and he was going to try and hold on to his
Yes.
dealership. And this is, this is part of the book. Brian was kind of a rebel, did things differently, and that's
Hmm.
why he was so successful. So,
Yeah, and it sounds like one of the things he was really successful is his dealership. It wasn't just Ferraris; he had hot rods and other cars amongst the Ferraris. So people came in to see his shop. It was smart because people weren't just coming to see Ferraris. I think he had a hot rod with a Ferrari engine in it,
yes,
and so they came into his shop just not for Ferraris, but that's what made him big and what made him well known as not just a Ferrari dealer, as almost like I don't want to say a hot rod shop, but like a car shop.
yes, absolutely, Chad. That you hit it right on the head. There were people that would come from far away just to see what was on the lot because it wasn't just Ferraris, and it wasn't just new Ferraris. He sold old Ferraris, classic
Yeah.
Ferraris, but he also sold, like as you said, muscle cars, hot rods, any classic cars really that would be of interest to
Yeah.
car enthusiasts.
Yeah, as a business owner, I just like that idea that, he brought people in just not off Ferrari. Like he
Mhm.
had something else for marketing people wanted to see. It's almost like a daily car show on his life, from what it sounds like. And that I find that very interesting.
Absolutely.
So what's your favorite chapter you wrote in the book?
Well, I like them all, obviously, but there's a couple that I really like. One is called Five Bags, and I'm not going to give it away because you got to read the chapter to get to the end, and it's a very very cool ending. But it's about a customer that came in with some really unusual terms and conditions, I guess I would say, about buying a car, and it wasn't buying a Ferrari. It was one of the muscle cars, so it was a '69 Plymouth Roadrunner Hemi that was out on the lot, and he wanted that, and it just had, like I said, special terms,
Special terms.
and so Brian accommodated him, and it turned out, where he really experienced, I guess I would say, fear,
Hmm.
uh, stress, and a hilarious laughter all in the same day. So it's a really cool story, and I don't want to tell any more than that. And then the other one I like is a chapter that's called The Stone, and it starts out with a comparison of a movie back in the 1980s. It was called Romancing the Stone
Oh yeah,
with
I grew up with that movie.
Michael Douglas and
Yeah,
Kathleen
Danny
Turner,
DeVito.
Danny DeVito, and so it's someone that's a car guy in
Hmm.
the Los Gatos area that came in and said to Brian, "You've got the stone," and Brian was like, "What do you mean?" And he said, your dealership is the stone," and goes into comparing it to how everybody's trying to get the map to get the stone in the movie Romancing
Oh
the
my
Stone.
god.
And so that's a really cool story. And what I like about that chapter, it's the turning point in the book too. From that chapter where it's just you're still really happy about what's
Hmm.
going on. then it starts to turn to, I guess what I would call the downside of the dealership. It starts to um, have that spiraling out of control. That's really where it really
Wow.
starts in that chapter. So then,
Wow. So the book really does go from like it's a great story, business story. Some people starting a Ferrari dealership, their other stuff to the full downside of
yep,
everything. Wow, that's pretty impressive. Now he did have a partner,
yes,
and you interviewed him too. Is he in the
yes,
book? Okay,
Richard Revore,
Rich Revore.
and so they both started together. And again, that's all explained in the book. They had a wonderful relationship,
Yeah.
best friends, and things just went a different direction, and they both wanted to go different directions. And I mean, the funny part of that is that Brian, they had a deal where one could buy the other out if they
Hmm.
disagreed. So the they ended up, Brian was having some struggles at the time and said, "You buy me out." So Richard bought Brian out, but within about 6 months, due to a number of turn of events, which are again highlighted in the book, Brian ended up buying the dealership back
Oh wow.
from someone Richard had sold it to. And the cool thing there is, he really ended up getting the dealership back for just the money in his pocket. And then we talk about that in the book and how that happened. So
That's
it's
wild.
an interesting story.
So do you think I think Jim's still alive? I'm not your Jim. I'm sorry,
I'm Jim.
Brian's still alive.
I'm still alive.
Yeah, you're still alive, hopefully. If not, this is a pretty impressive ghost.
There you go.
A ghost writer.
There you go.
But he's still alive. He's still living
Yes.
out in California, or
Yes. Well, he, he's a citizen of South Carolina, actually.
oh, really?
And but he does spend a lot of time still in
Hmm.
Los Gatos. So yeah, I get to talk
So
with him.
he's right down the road from you then.
If
Yeah,
probably,
stay down. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's pretty wild. And do you think you'll write another book about Jim? Jim, I'm sorry.
Brian?
About Brian? Yeah. You think
Well,
you'll write
one of the things that amazed me when I first started in this venture is that there was so much information about
Mhm.
Ferrari Los Gatos. In fact, and Brian, and his family, his father, and everyone else, and so that was probably one of the hardest things for me was to figure out what do you put in the book because there's
Yes.
so much you have to leave out. So there's a possibility,
That's awesome.
we could have a sequel. You never know.
And do you think he would ever be interested in doing an interview with us?
Absolutely,
We'll
I've
have
already
to,
talked to him
yeah,
about
we'll
it.
have to make that out for our viewers. I
Yeah,
think they would love that.
yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about the book before we end this here?
Well, it's a wonderful journey. I think the readers would enjoy. It's not only the story of the car dealership; it's the story of building a successful business. How you do that, how you differentiate yourself from the crowd, and also I think there's probably some good advice in there about things to look out for,
Mm-hmm.
things to keep your eyes on, so you don't end up losing what you've built.
That's great. I've like I said, I've read a few chapters. All these are going to be sold, and then I'm going to get myself my personal copy in, and I can't wait to sit down and read it. I'm very much appreciate you coming out here for the interview.
Well, I appreciate you
Yeah.
and what you're doing here. I think it's a wonderful organization you have, and this is actually we're talking together on book release day,
Yeah.
so it's a very special day for me. It's a long time that I've been dreaming about this, and I'm really happy to be able to share it with you.
I'm really excited you came out, and I took the whole trip all the way from California here. I really appreciate it, and I'm excited. I'm sure we'll sell a ton of your books.
Awesome.
Yeah. All
Sounds
right.
good.
I appreciate it, Jim.
All right,
All
Chad.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Guys, I hope you loved that interview. We had a great time. It was a lot of fun.
Yes.
Nice talking to Jim about his book. You can purchase this book at Midlife Classic Cars or anywhere you see the Midlife Classic Cars on any marketplace. You can purchase the book from us. Remember, we always ship in boxes, and you'll get a free sticker with every order. Also, please like and share the video. It obviously helps us out on any social media. We'd really appreciate it. Jim, is there anything you'd like to promote?
Well, I'd just like to say thank you so much for having
You're
me,
welcome.
and I really appreciate it. And I do have a website, jimciardella.com. You can go find more information about the book there. Great photos as well. And I'm just like to say, if you join me on the journey in this book, you'll see a side of Ferrari that most people haven't seen. And lastly, I just hope all of you enjoy reading the book as much as I enjoyed writing it.
Oh, I have a feeling they will. It's great. Some of the stories in here are just really good, really unique stories you've never heard anywhere else. So really appreciate it, guys. Hope everyone has a good one. Take care, and we'll see you on the next video. Hey guys, really hope you enjoyed the interview. If you're an author and would like to do an interview with Midlife Classic Cars, just scroll down to the bottom of our website, midlifeclassiccars.com, and we have a new section called Author Interviews. Just sign up and we can start working together to get you an interview. The good thing is you don't actually have to be here. We can do these interviews remote, whether they be audio and video or just audio. So just sign up and we'll get an interview going with you and help you promote your book. I think this is going to be a great format that we're going to start doing on a regular basis to get authors more exposure, especially automotive authors. The one caveat is we need to sell your book on our website. So if we don't have your book on your website, you can contact us and I can help you, or you can help me get in contact with your publisher and we can work something out so we can get it in. So if you want to do an interview, just reach out and let us know. Thank you guys.